The rain pounded against my windows like angry fists as I tucked my 5-year-old daughter into bed. Little did I know that the storm outside was nothing compared to the tempest that would arrive at my doorstep at midnight, my boss, drenched and broken, with nowhere else to go. What happened next would change both our lives forever. If you've ever had your world turned upside down in a single moment, hit that like button and subscribe to see more stories that prove sometimes life's greatest blessings arrive in the most unexpected packages. I pressed a gentle kiss to Emma's forehead, her blonde curls splayed across the pillow like a halo. "Sweet dreams, princess," I whispered, carefully extracting myself from her grip. At 5 years old, she still insisted I lie beside her until she fell asleep, a ritual that had become even more sacred in the 2 years since her mother walked out on us. The apartment felt especially quiet tonight. Rain lashed against the windows of our modest 2-bedroom place, nothing fancy, but it was home. I settled onto the couch with my laptop, determined to finish the presentation I needed for tomorrow's meeting. As a single dad working as a senior graphic designer at Horizon Media, I'd mastered the art of cramming work into the precious hours after Emma's bedtime. My boss, Alexis Chen, had made it clear this pitch needed to be perfect. Horizon was competing for the Westfield account, a contract that could secure the company's future and, more importantly for me, the promotion I desperately needed. The promotion that would finally give Emma and me some breathing room in our tight budget. Alexis had always been an enigma to me. Brilliant, demanding, and impossibly composed, she ran the creative department with precision and unwavering standards. At 35, just a few years older than my 32, she'd already accomplished what most people in our industry only dreamed of. The office whispered about her, how she'd never been seen to crack under pressure, how little anyone knew about her life outside work, how she seemed to exist solely within the gleaming glass walls of Horizon's downtown office. I admired her professionally, feared her slightly as my superior, but knew almost nothing about her as a person. Which is why, when my doorbell rang at exactly midnight, Alexis Chen was the last person I expected to find standing in my hallway. The insistent buzzing jolted me from my concentration. I glanced at the time, 12 a.m., and felt a flicker of alarm. No one visited at this hour, especially not on a Tuesday night during a thunderstorm. My first thought was for Emma, sleeping peacefully down the hall. I approached the door cautiously and peered through the peephole. The distorted image made me blink twice before recognition hit. Alexis Chen stood in my hallway, soaking wet, her normally immaculate appearance in disarray. Her dark hair hung in dripping tendrils around her face, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. I yanked the door open, shock rendering me momentarily speechless. "Nathan," she said, her voice barely audible above the storm. "I'm sorry to show up like this." She hugged her arms around herself, water pooling at her feet. "Can I stay tonight? I have nowhere else to go." The woman who had critiqued my work with razor-sharp precision just hours earlier now looked utterly lost. Her designer blazer was plastered to her shoulders, and I noticed with alarm that she was shivering. "Of course," I said, stepping aside. "Come in." She hesitated, vulnerability flickering across her face, an expression I'd never seen on the formidable Alexis Chen. I wouldn't ask if I had any other option. "It's okay," I assured her, though nothing about this situation felt normal. "Come in before you catch pneumonia." As she stepped into my apartment, I became acutely aware of the toys scattered across the living room floor, the modest furnishings, the half-eaten bowl of cereal I'd forgotten to clear from the coffee table. This was Alexis Chen, who probably lived in some minimalist penthouse downtown, standing in my chaotic single-dad apartment. "I'll get you a towel," I said, hurrying to the linen closet. When I returned, she hadn't moved from the entryway, as if afraid to drip water on my already worn carpet. "Thank you," she whispered, taking the towel and dabbing at her face. Up close, I noticed the redness around her eyes. Had she been crying? "Would you like some tea? Coffee? Something stronger?" I offered, trying to navigate this bizarre situation. "Tea would be nice," she said, her voice steadier now. I'm sorry about this, Nathan. I know it's inappropriate and unprofessional, but her voice caught, and she pressed her lips together. It's fine, I said, gesturing toward the bathroom. There are clean towels under the sink if you want to shower and warm up. I can find you something dry to wear. Relief washed over her face. Thank you. While she showered, I moved around the kitchen on autopilot, boiling water and searching for the least chipped mug I owned. My mind raced with questions. What could possibly have driven Alexis Chen, the most self-sufficient person I knew, to my doorstep in the middle of the night? And why me? We weren't friends. We weren't even particularly friendly colleagues. I was just one of her many employees, someone she critiqued and directed daily with professional detachment. I heard the bathroom door open and turned to find Alexis standing uncertainly in the hallway. She wore an old university sweatshirt and sweatpants I'd left for her, clothes that had once belonged to Emma's mother. The sight of my boss in these casual clothes was jarring, like seeing a tiger in pajamas. Feel better? I asked, placing a steaming mug on the kitchen counter. She nodded, approaching cautiously. Much. Thank you. She wrapped her hands around the mug, and I noticed they were trembling slightly. I owe you an explanation. You don't owe me anything, I said automatically, though curiosity burned through me. She met my eyes, and I was struck by how different she looked without her usual armor of confidence and authority. My apartment building caught fire tonight. What? Are you okay? Were you hurt? The questions tumbled out. I'm fine. I wasn't home when it started. I was working late at the office. She took a sip of tea. When I got back, the whole block was cordoned off. They're not letting anyone in until at least tomorrow, maybe longer. My phone died, my car keys were in my apartment, and in the confusion. She gestured helplessly. Your address was in the HR files. You live closest to the office. I'm so sorry, I said, genuinely shocked. That's terrible. I tried hotels, but with the tech conference in town, everything's booked. I called a few colleagues before my phone died, but no one answered. She looked down at her tea. You were my last option. The admission seemed to cost her something. Alexis Chen, reduced to knocking on a subordinate's door in the middle of the night. Well, I'm glad you came here, I said. The couch pulls out. It's not the Ritz, but it's comfortable enough. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. At this point, I'd sleep on your floor and be grateful. Daddy? A small voice interrupted us. Emma stood in the hallway, rubbing her eyes sleepily, her favorite stuffed rabbit clutched in one arm. I heard talking. Hey, sweetheart, I said, crossing to her. Sorry we woke you. This is... I hesitated, unsure how to introduce my boss to my daughter. I'm Alexis, my boss said, her voice gentler than I'd ever heard it. I work with your dad. Emma studied her with the frank curiosity only children possess. Why are you here in the night time? I knelt beside Emma. Alexis had a problem with her home, so she's going to stay with us tonight. Is that okay? Emma considered this seriously. Did the monsters come to your house? She asked Alexis. Something flickered across Alexis's face, surprise, then a softness I'd never seen before. Something like that, she said. But your dad is helping me. Emma nodded sagely. Daddy's good at scaring away monsters. He checks under my bed every night. That sounds like a very important job, Alexis said, and I caught a glimpse of genuine warmth in her eyes. Come on, princess, I said, lifting Emma into my arms. Back to bed. You have school tomorrow. Can Alexis read me a story? Emma asked, and I froze, mortified by my daughter's request. Emma, Alexis is tired and... I'd be happy to, Alexis interrupted, surprising me. If that's okay with your dad. I hesitated, then nodded. Sure. Her books are on the shelf by her bed. I carried Emma back to her room, acutely aware of Alexis following behind us. This was surreal. My boss, the woman who had made me redo an entire campaign just yesterday because the font was uninspired, was about to read my daughter a bedtime story. Emma's room was a testament to my attempts at creating normalcy in our life after her mother left. Pink walls, a canopy bed I'd assembled myself, and photos everywhere, Emma and me at the zoo, at the beach, blowing out birthday candles. I realized with a jolt that there were no pictures of her mother. I'd removed them all after Emma had cried for weeks, asking when Mommy was coming home. Which book would you like? Alexis asked Emma, approaching the bookshelf with the same focused attention she gave to client briefs. The one about the rabbit family, Emma said, snuggling under her covers. I watched in amazement as Alexis Chen, terror of the creative department, settled onto the edge of Emma's bed and began reading about a family of rabbits who lived in a hollow tree. Her voice, usually sharp with critique in meetings, transformed into a gentle cadence, rising and falling with the story. Emma's eyes grew heavy, and by the third page, she was asleep. Alexis closed the book softly and stood. Our eyes met over Emma's sleeping form, and something passed between us, an acknowledgement, perhaps, that we were seeing sides of each other never revealed in the fluorescent lights of Horizon Media. Back in the living room, I busied myself making up the sofa bed while Alexis stood awkwardly by the window, watching the rain. She's beautiful, Alexis said quietly. Your daughter. Thank you, I replied, smoothing a sheet over the mattress. She's everything to me. You're raising her alone. The question was tentative, unlike the direct interrogations I was used to from her. I nodded, focusing on tucking in the corners of the sheet. Her mother left when Emma was 3. Decided parenthood and marriage weren't for her after all. I'm sorry, Alexis said, and the simple sincerity in her voice made me look up. That must be incredibly difficult. It was. It still is sometimes. I straightened, suddenly self-conscious about sharing personal details with my boss. But we manage. Emma's worth every sacrifice. Alexis nodded, her gaze drifting back to the rain-streaked window. You're doing a wonderful job with her. That's obvious. The compliment, so unexpected from someone who rarely offered praise, caught me off guard. Thank you. That means a lot. An awkward silence fell between us. In the office, our roles were clear, she directed, I executed. Here, in my apartment at nearly 1 in the morning, the boundaries blurred. The presentation, she said suddenly. For tomorrow. Were you working on it when I interrupted? Almost finished, I assured her. Just need to polish the visuals for the 3rd section. She hesitated. I could help. If you want. I stared at her, trying to reconcile this offer with the boss who maintained professional distance at all times. You don't have to do that. You've had a rough night. I'd rather keep busy, she admitted. Otherwise, I'll just lie awake thinking about whether I still own anything besides the clothes currently soaking in your bathtub. The vulnerability in her admission struck me. Okay, I said. Let me get my laptop. For the next hour, we sat at my kitchen table, heads bent over my presentation. Working with Alexis outside the office was a revelation. Without the pressure of the corporate environment, her feedback was still precise but somehow gentler, more collaborative. She suggested tweaks to the color scheme that made the whole presentation pop, rearranged slides for better narrative flow, and even complemented elements I'd designed. This is good, Nathan, she said, pointing to a graphic I'd created. Really good. You have an eye for balance that many designers lack. High praise coming from you, I said, only half joking. She glanced at me, a flicker of something, hurt, crossing her face. Am I really that harsh? The question caught me off guard. You're exacting, I said diplomatically. You have high standards. That's a polite way of saying I'm difficult to work for. I hesitated, unsure how to navigate this conversation with someone who would still be my boss tomorrow. You push us to do our best work. That's not a bad thing. She was quiet for a moment, staring at the screen. When I started at Horizon, I was the only woman in senior management. I learned quickly that I couldn't afford to be seen as soft or emotional if I wanted to be taken seriously. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Sometimes I wonder if I overcorrected. The admission stunned me. Alexis Chen, questioning herself? For what it's worth, I said carefully, the team respects you. Your expertise is undeniable. Respect isn't the same as being liked, she said softly, almost to herself. I didn't know how to respond to that. In the silence that followed, I noticed the dark circles under her eyes, the weariness in her posture. We should get some sleep, I said, closing the laptop. It's late, and tomorrow will be a long day. She nodded, suddenly looking exhausted. You're right. And Nathan? Thank you. Not just for the place to stay, but for not asking questions or judging me for showing up like this. Anyone would have done the same, I said. A sad smile touched her lips. No. They wouldn't have. I showed her where extra blankets were kept, made sure she had everything she needed, and retreated to my bedroom. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I tried to process the events of the evening. My boss was sleeping on my sofa bed. My boss had read my daughter a bedtime story. My boss had revealed glimpses of a person I'd never suspected existed beneath her professional exterior. Sleep came fitfully, and when my alarm blared at 6 a.m., I felt as though I'd barely closed my eyes. I showered quickly and dressed for work, then padded quietly to the kitchen to start coffee, expecting to find Alexis still asleep. Instead, I found her sitting at my kitchen table, dressed in yesterday's now dry clothes, her hair neatly combed, scrolling through her phone with a frown. You're up early, I said, surprised. She looked up. My phone charged enough to turn on. I've been checking the news about the fire. She turned the screen toward me, showing images of a smoldering apartment building cordoned off with yellow tape. They're saying it will be at least a week before residents can return, and even then, only to collect belongings. The damage is extensive. I'm so sorry, I said, genuinely dismayed for her. Do you have somewhere to go? Family nearby? A shadow crossed her face. No family. Not anymore. And friends. She hesitated. Let's just say I've been focused on my career for a long time. The admission hung in the air between us. I busied myself with the coffee maker, giving her a moment of privacy. You're welcome to stay here, I found myself saying. Until you figure something out. She looked up, surprise evident in her expression. I couldn't impose like that. It's not an imposition, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. Emma liked you, which is rare. She's usually shy with new people. She's a special little girl, Alexis said, a genuine smile softening her features. But Nathan, I'm your boss. This crosses every professional boundary. Extraordinary circumstances, I countered, pouring coffee into mugs. Besides, the alternative is what? A hotel, if you can even find one. Being alone while dealing with this? She accepted the coffee I offered, wrapping her hands around the mug. Why would you do this for me? We barely know each other outside work. The question gave me pause. Why was I offering? Because it's the right thing to do, I said finally. And because I know what it's like to have your life upended overnight. Understanding flickered in her eyes. When?